So to begin our web design project, we're going to be working with what are called wireframes, which are essentially design prototypes. And we're going to be using Adobe Xd to accomplish this. And Adobe Xd is a piece of free software that you can get off of Adobe's website, or it's included with your Creative Cloud subscription. So just install it, and whenever you open it up, it should look like this. Now notice that Xd is in beta right now, so it goes through a lot of changes very rapidly. So next week it might look totally different. Just keep that in mind. So we have this home section on the left, an add-on section where you can actually find third-party add-ons to include with your XD projects, and then your computer, which just includes your recent projects. So I'm going to go home, and for this class, we're essentially just going to be using the Web 1920 preset. So this refers to the size of the screen, and in our case, we're using a 1920 by 1080 screen, which is your standard HD monitor size. So whenever you open up XD, very simple. It should look a lot like Illustrator or Photoshop. We have the project title at the top. We have an artboard on the left-hand side. We have a series of tools on the far left. And on the right-hand side, we have a series of basically properties or tool options. Our zoom is in the upper right-hand corner. So if I want to really zoom in on this, I can see it at 100%. And then this will essentially test it on a device if you have a device linked, which we're not going to get into in this class because we're using web applications, so your computer will be your device. This play will let you preview it on your desktop, and this will finally let you share it. This is how you'll submit your projects to me, is by sharing them. On the opposite side, we have the Design tab, which is what we'll be working in for now, and then the Prototyping tab. And the Prototyping tab essentially lets you add interactivity. So the Design tab is for actually designing, Prototyping tab is for adding interactivity. Back in our design space, in the bottom left-hand corner, we have the Assets window, which if we click that, it'll open up some assets that we can create. These are kind of like symbols in Illustrator, or presets that we build ourselves. Below that, we have a Artboard/layers panel, which shows all of our artboards. So unlike Illustrator, one artboard is not a single piece of artwork in Adobe Xd. Rather, we use an artboard kind of to represent a state of our website. So this artboard might be our landing page. We would have another artboard whenever we click a link that takes us to the About page, another artboard for our contact page, and so on and so forth. So what we're kind of doing here is this old school process of laying out a bunch of note cards, or artboards in this case, and then connecting all of them and showing how we move from one to the other. So you can think about that sitemap that you made earlier and just translating that sitemap to Adobe Xd. So that being said, the first and most important thing is, how do we create new artboards? Well, very simply, on the left-hand side, we have the Artboard tool. Whenever I select that, I can either draw out a custom-sized artboard, which you're not really going to be doing too often. Most of the time, we're going to be picking from one of these preset artboards on the right-hand side, so I'm just going to pick Web 1920. If I want to rename it, I can click the title and call this, let's say, About. We can call this one Home. And notice with my selection tool, just the typical selection tool at the top, I can move this artboard around. The actual placement of it has no real meaning. It's just a visual tool that we can use. So I'm going to move this up here. Let's use that Artboard tool to make another Web 1920. I'll call this one Contact and move it down here. So really, this is just a prototyping tool, right? We're not using this to make a lot of art. We're just using this to kind of lay things out and get a feel for it before we start making all the art. And let's call this one Order. Now I'm going to save my project, which I can just do Command X or Control X, and I'll just save it to my desktop and give it a name like My First Project, and hit Return.